everyone, welcome back to Let's Talk. My name is John, and today we're here to talk about 1973's The Last Detail. And we're also here to talk about its 4K Blu-ray that came out from Shout Factory. But before we dive into that, if you are a fan of 4K Blu-ray reviews, movie reviews, lists, and podcasts, we try and do them all here on the channel, and nothing helps the channel out more than by simply liking this video and subscribing to the channel. So The Last Detail was released in 1973. It's directed by Hal Ashby. It stars Randy Quaid, Jack Nicholson, and Otis Young. And the screenplay was done by Robert Towne. You guys might recognize Robert Towne as the guy who wrote Chinatown, which is one of my top 10 favorite films of all time. And that screenplay is widely considered one of the greatest screenplays of all time. But he also wrote this screenplay, and this film follows around Otis Young's character of Mule, and it also follows around Jack Nicholson's character of Billy Badass Badusky. And these two are tasked with transferring Randy Quaid, who was also on the same base as them, his character of Meadows, to a prison. He's been sentenced to 8 years, and he's been dishonorably discharged for trying to steal $40 out of the polio charity box.
Polio box is the old man's old lady's favorite do-gooder project.
It kind of feels like he's had the book thrown at him, and now these two soldiers, these two lifetime Navy soldiers, are tasked with taking him basically from Virginia to Maine. So they're going to be spending the entire film on the road, taking trains, just trying to get up there. They have about 5 days to get him there, but Jack Nicholson said, we can get there in 2 days, but let's have a little fun along the way. And this is kind of what the film is about. These two characters of Mule and Badass, or Billy or Badusky, transferring this guy, and how they feel about their own lives and about this poor young guy who's only 18 years old, who has just gotten into the Navy, made one silly mistake, and now his whole life is ruined. So these two guys are trying to show him what the world is like. You know, he's not even an adult yet. He's very young. He's never even had a drink. He's never smoked weed. He's never had sex with a woman. So throughout this entire film, we're going to show him that, while both Jack Nicholson and Otis Young's character are dealing with what their lives are, what their lives became as just these yes men. You know, these guys who work for the man. They work for, you know, they're soldiers. They're lifetime Navy men. They're dealing with the fact that they're not really entirely in control of their whole life. They're basically just yes men like the rest of us. You know, when they're not around the Navy, they're not around the brass coming down on them. You know, they're bullshitting and complaining about everything that goes on, just like how regular people do. That's what this screenplay does best, is like these characters all feel like real, genuine, fleshed out characters. Randy Quaid is really good in this movie. You could see it already in this movie, that innocence that Randy Quaid would play in a lot of his other movies. Mainly what I was thinking of was Kingpin when I was watching this. I felt like this is kind of like a precursor to that in a less comedic way. Yes, this movie is a dramedy, but this movie's taken, I think, a little bit more seriously than, you know, Kingpin, or like how you would see his character of Uncle Eddie in the Vacation movies.
This is just a real nice surprise.
Randy Quaid plays that character. Yeah, he's a bumbling idiot, but he plays that guy so innocent and lovable, and you can see that in this role here. But this time, he's so young, he doesn't even know any better. He doesn't know what's right and wrong. He's still conflicted on that. We even have a scene where they go back and see his mother's house, and they kind of don't, she's not even there, and they look inside, and they see how she lives. And we see, like, this guy kind of just got dealt a bad hand, and you can see that doesn't sit right with both Otis Young and Jack Nicholson. They both just feel like this guy got railroaded, and we work for these people, and it's our job to bring this guy, turn him in. And you can see how conflicted they are throughout the entire movie about doing that. And that's basically what this movie is. It's just a hangout movie with these three guys just talking, bullshitting. One of my favorite scenes in the movie is like they go into a bar, they want to get Randy Quaid a drink, but the bartender says, well, I'm going to need the CID. Jack Nicholson's like, we're soldiers. We're Navy men. Why do you need the CID? Well, he's like, well, that guy's definitely not 18, which Randy Quaid, I mean, I guess the drinking age is supposed to be 21, but Randy Quaid does not look 18 years old in this movie. I mean, I get it. He looks young, maybe, and I know that, you know, people aged way faster back then than they do now. But I'm looking at him like, this guy is easily 25 years old. And actually, in real life, Randy Quaid was 23 at the time. But anyway, I'm getting a little off topic. So he's like, well, that guy, he's too young. I know I can't serve him.
And says I have to serve him, and says I can't.
Well, I'll tell you what you better do, Mr. Citizen Bartender.
That guy, because Otis Young is an African-American. So you could tell already right now that this guy is just a piece of shit bartender. So Jack Nicholson flips out on him, makes them give them beer, even though they don't end up getting beer. But he flips out, basically just...
I am the motherfucking Shore Patrol, motherfucker! I am the motherfucking Shore Patrol!
Puts the fear of God in this man, and then they walk out. And that's basically what Jack Nicholson does throughout this movie. He kind of flies off the handle. We get that classic Jack stuff. This is actually the movie role that got him the job in One Who Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, because At that point, he was an established actor, but we hadn't seen that real, it's your old pal Jack yet. You know, the one that we all would come to love, the one from Batman from Chinatown, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, you know, the Shining Jack. That wasn't there yet. This is kind of the movie that really let him spread his wings and become the actor that we would know of Jack Nicholson. And this movie is actually a really good movie if you haven't seen it. This was my first time watching it, and I was surprised at how much I enjoyed it. It's very much a 1970s movie. It's paced like a 1970s movie. My biggest complaint about the film is I particularly didn't enjoy the score. I think the score does fit this movie, but it's just not the kind of score I like. It's got like that military marching band kind of style, which would fit more in with like a comedy. And this was technically a drama / comedy, but when you watch it now, 50 years later, it comes off more like a drama, and the jokes don't just hit, and the comedy part doesn't hit as much as you would expect, or the way they kind of play it like it would. That could be just a personal taste thing. You know, I'm a lot younger than when this movie came out. I wasn't even born for 19 more years when this movie came out, so maybe that's why the comedy doesn't work as well for me, and it would work better with an older audience. But that doesn't take anything away from the film. This is a fantastic movie overall. If you haven't seen this one, I can highly recommend it. And if you're a Jack Nicholson fan like I am, and you still haven't seen this movie, you are doing yourself a horrible disservice by not checking this one out. And maybe you want to check out this 4K Blu-ray that we're going to talk about right now. So this 4K Blu-ray came out in October of 2022. I didn't grab it until Shout Factory had a 4K Blu-ray sale recently, and I decided, I'll take a risk. I heard it was great. Shamrock Balls told me in the comment section that this is a movie I would love if I'm a Jack Nicholson fan, so I decided, you know what? Let me give it a shot. At that price, it's a steal, and I did. I grabbed it, and you get, you know, Shout Select here, no slipcover, which Shout Select has been kind of doing lately with their brand of releases. Shout Select is Shout Factory's kind of spin-off brand where they kind of put out the more highbrow dramas. You know, Shout Factory is kind of more of the mainstream releases, while Scream Factory is more of their horror releases, whereas the Shout Select brand might be like their classic film releases. This is the same brand that has released films like Rollerball, Midnight Run, more of their classic film brand. So that film brand usually doesn't get a slipcover on it, which is unfortunate because these are usually about $27. They're still about the same price as a regular Scream Factory special edition. They don't change the price, but you get a lot less with the Shout Select brand. Sometimes they'll only give you one 4K disc like the film Rollerball, but in here we do get a nice package. I do like the cover. It's a nice cover. You know, I also got sent a poster with this if you ordered it off of Shout Factory like I did for the sale. So, I mean, I have no room for it, but it did come with a poster. You get 2 discs with individual disc design. You get a Blu-ray and a 4K disc, which is really cool. I did appreciate them doing that. It's presented in its original aspect ratio of 1.85. It's got Dolby Vision and HDR10 on it. That Blu-ray and 4K have the exact same extras on it. There's a couple interviews on there, mostly with Alexander Payne, the guy who directed the movie Election from 2000 with Matthew Broderick and Reese Witherspoon, which is a really good movie. I think you guys should definitely check that one out if you haven't seen that. But he's talking about what influenced him. There's only these 3 interviews on here, and that's it. There is nothing else. I think there's also the trailer, so there's a very limited amount of extras, and you get them on the Blu-ray disc and the 4K disc. The menus are exactly the same. The audio is exactly the same on both also. It's just a DTS 2.0 mono track. You get nothing else. You don't even have a choice to change it. That is it. You can turn subtitles on or off, and that is it. So there's not many options on here. Really, you're just in this for the 4K disc because the extras, while good and like, you know, I did enjoy watching them, there's just not much there. There's not much for me to go, oh, you know what? You got to get this for the extras. And Scream Factory, Shout Factory, they have put out some of the best extras for the collector that you have ever seen. It's just weird that they kind of skimp out when it comes to their Shout Select brand. More than likely, they will have a very limited amount of extras, which is very strange because, again, they do charge the same price no matter what it is. But it's nice that we do get that Blu-ray disc, so if you are, you know, one of those people that doesn't have a 4K player in every room of your house and you still want to watch The Last Detail, you do get that Blu-ray disc in here. And there's also not much of a difference visually as far as that Blu-ray disc goes to the 4K disc. The film itself was shot with natural light on film back in 1973 because they actually did shoot on location, except for the naval base. That wasn't in Virginia, that was actually in Canada, but they do go on this journey like they do in the movie. They shot this movie in order to help actors Otis Young and Randy Quaid, who was a very young actor. Otis Young came on at the very end of pre-production because the original actor unfortunately got diagnosed with terminal cancer and they had to bring somebody in last minute. So to help it make it easier for them, they shot this in order. So they're actually actually doing this trip, and you can notice that on the film itself, it does look very naturally lit. It looks like they're in real locations, which is something I always truly appreciate, because when you do that, it feels real. They wanted to shoot it like a documentary style, and it does feel that way, which is a beautiful choice for cinematography, but I don't know if it transfers that great to 4K, mainly because lighting plays a big part in that. So this movie is kind of a great, it's just super, super, super grainy, and you notice that on the Blu-ray and the 4K. The 4K doesn't fix that. It actually fixes it more with the HDR10 than it does with the Dolby Vision. The Dolby Vision, it was actually a little bit more grainy, but either way, the Blu-ray, the 4K, no matter which way you watch it, it's gonna be super, super grainy. There's scenes that are gonna look muddy because of that, and it's very noticeable. It's not that sharp even on the 4K. It's, you know, it's not something that's very comparable to like modern day 4Ks that we get. It's something I was thinking more in line with like Kino Lorber's release of Death Wish. That's kind of the best that's kind of the best comparison I can go with as far as visuals go. Still, even that I think is a little bit better than this. You know, the HDR is doing a good enough job because it's still improving on the Blu-ray. It's making it brighter. It's making the dark colors deeper and, you know, less gray, but it's still not doing a phenomenal job. I don't think it's one of the greatest showpieces you'll ever see. I don't think that if you have a previous Blu-ray, you need to even upgrade to this 4K, because you're going to be a little bit disappointed with the quality. If you're expecting like a Godfather type transfer, which came out around the same exact time, where those 4Ks just make those movies look phenomenal. This is kind of going to be more in line with how you remember this movie. It's still going to look like a 1970s movie. It's not going to like clean up like the greatest. It's not going to be the sharpest. They're not going to get rid of a lot of the grain. So you can't expect that here. Now, I didn't own this movie yet, and I got it for $17, I believe, on that sale. So I do feel like I got my money's worth, because I did really enjoy the film. I would have liked more extras. I think a new audio track would have been nice. A little bit more effort, I think, would have been better to justify the full price of this. But if you can get it in that $15 to $20 range, it's definitely worth it, because it is a fantastic film. The disc itself and the actual packaging and the audio are all a little bit disappointing. It doesn't come off like a premium 4K release. This comes off more like a cast aside release, like let's get this film out there on 4K so that we can keep the actual preservation of the film itself alive, whereas it's not really catering to the collector, who are more than likely to get this Shout Select brand 4K. So that's what makes it a little bit more disappointing. So if I was going to score this on a score of 1 to 10, I would still give this a solid 7 out of 10. It's not perfect. It's not the greatest release, but the film itself does do a good job, at least making it worthwhile. I just wouldn't buy this at full price, and if you have the previous Blu-ray, I don't think you need to rush out and grab this unless you are just a super huge fan of The Last Detail, and there might be people out there that are, because it is a fantastic film. So even if you don't grab this, I do recommend checking this out, especially if you're a fan of 1970s films. I really do think that this is one you're going to enjoy, because it's a really good character study of 3 different men that I really think that you will have a good time watching. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for being here on another episode of Let's Talk With Me. Nothing supports this channel out more than by you just simply liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and then maybe going out, getting one of those cool hats that the Navy wears, throwing that on your head, and going out and telling all your friends about us. We'll be seeing you around.